Good evening, Fantasy Degenerates. It's week 5, and this week we'll be breaking down the power rankings and a match of the week. So let's begin. At number 12, we have Brent Berry, who still stays in the bottom spot this week. So
Brent stays in the bottom spot, but he did what every 1 and 3 team has to do. He made moves this week, and that's nice. He traded Doug Martin, got a couple assets from Todd, and I think that maybe their point contributions are going to overcome what he needs at this point, and we'll see what happens with him. I think he's on his way.
Well, and he got the pick of who I call the Black Frenchman, who dated what was the NBA player that dated the Desperate Housewives?
Tony Parker.
Tony Parker.
He got Giovanni Retard.
The Black Frenchman. So let's see what the Black Frenchman does for you and moving up the power rankings. At number 11, we have John. Good news for John. He does get Eddie Lacy back. Part of John being at 11 kind of had some lineup issues last week, leaving Bradshaw in. This week, there's still a couple of spots to fill. I'm going to blame that on Vegas, John. But
yeah, Johnny, he left Bradshaw, and he was known 2 days before the game he wasn't playing. Let's tighten things up. Maybe set your lineup, get a few wins, put you back in contention here.
So in 11, we have Mark. So what are you thinking about Mark?
Dave, you made a move this week. He got Julian Edelman on his team, who leads the lead in receptions.
Yeah.
His output may drop off when a couple of Patriots receivers comes back, but at this point, I think with returning punts, Edelman will be a good point boost for him.
And I think it's temporary. It's just the same thing as picking up McGahee and putting him in your lineup this week. He's still adjusting A to the league, B to a new team with the Cleveland Browns, so putting him in that starting running back spot is probably going to make him vulnerable for another loss this week. But, we'll see what happens. But I think it's kind of a very risky move on your part. So, at number 9, we have Kyle.
Go ahead. You got a lot to say about Kyle.
Kyle is the best 0-4 team in fantasy football history. Since we began this league, there is no team that has had a worse record that is better than Kyle's team. And let me just make this simple. 506 points scored against you this year is unbelievable with only 4 games in. And then in last week, you get beat scoring 130 points when Kevin's scoring 166. My man, you deserve a win. You will get a win this week.
There's not much to say about Kyle. You're the lock of the week. We say it week in and week out. You're great on paper. This week you're due. Congratulations. I'm already saying you get your first win this week.
Just a couple more wins, you're a top 4 team. In number 8, we have Carrie. And so what do you think about that?
Carrie, we always say she's undervalued, and it's true. And she's doing the move she has to make. She's we talked about earlier. You said that she is benching Colin Kaepernick, which is a good move because Sam Bradford's against the Jags. It's she's looking at the matchup. She's doing what she has to do.
Yeah, she's playing like a veteran, and the only thing that you're going to have to worry about is Bernard Pierce and Ray Rice getting healthy, and how much is he going to steal the runs from Bernard Pierce. But the Ravens have totally, I think, abandoned the run with how many times they're throwing it, and they overplayed Joe Flacid. So, who knows what's going to happen with that, but you might have to move Pierce out of your lineup. So,
the fact of the matter is they had 9 rushes last week in the total game, which is insane for a power running team.
Let's see what happens there. And talking about running, we have number 7, Todd. So,
yeah, Todd, he just picked up Doug Martin in that blockbuster we talked about earlier with Brent, leaving him the 3 top running back core in the league. He's got Alfred Morris, LaShawn McCoy, Doug Martin, 3 for potential, they were first rounders.
And I think the only barrier, Todd, that you have right now is the quarterback situation with Tony Romo. And Tony Romo, historically, which everyone knows, toward the end of the season usually shits the bed and has a lot of inconsistent play. So that's the only thing that worries me about having Tony Romo in your lineup, especially later on the season. But I do think that you're that team that is definitely pounding on the door for the top 6 rankings. And it's probably going to, late in the season, do the same thing as you did last year with making it into the championship match. I think you're a good contender for that. So,
speaking of the top 6, let's get right to those. Here's the potential. These teams would be in the playoffs right now if they started today. And Nick Allen's right on the cusp there. And Nick, he's got a solid team. He has people that are scoring a lot of points now, and they may fluctuate in the future. And he's not going to be that top 3 team or that bottom 3 team, but he will hover there in the middle. And I think that's probably his spot this year. And you could see him sneaking into the playoffs.
Yeah, I mean, I think that he has the possibility of doing that, but he has the possibility of moving in and out. It's the same thing that Nick's been for the last 3 years. Is that middle of the road team where, and I think a lot of it comes back to his draft style. He drafts consistently good players, but does not take a lot of risk in that, so it doesn't put him either in the bottom or the top. So we'll see how it goes, and that's what you want to be. You just want to be in the playoffs toward the end of the season. So I don't blame Nick for that. So,
and then rolling on up to number 5, we have Waylon, and Waylon and Strack have really been working the phone lines this week, trying to get a deal worked out between the two of them. They've probably spent 100 text messages and a total time of about 3.5 hours working on these deals. Nothing's worked out for him. Waylon's team's currently in the top 5. He's 2-2 at 500, but he's got a good squad. He's maintaining the same rankings pretty much he's been at all season. And do you see that continuing?
Yeah, absolutely. And as long as I have Peyton Manning there, in the last 2 weeks, he's averaged anywhere between 30 and 35 points a game. As long as he's averaging those points, I'm going to be a contender. I mean, and then everyone else putting up, like you were saying, 8 to 10 points a game. It's hard to deny that. I just want to add in when you mentioned something about Strack and doing all those trades and things. And nothing at this point has got worked out. Maybe it will or what, but I feel absolutely violated. Like he's been trying to scoop me for hours. So I'm going to have to go home and put a fire hose to myself. So
yeah.
But anyways.
Your team begins and ends with Peyton Manning, and everything else falls into place.
I'm just really disappointed in Strack.
Fair enough. I'm sitting at number 4. I mean, at this point in the league, I've obviously supplanted myself as the king of trades. If you want deals, I'm the guy. I'm like a used car salesman in this league.
The pawn shop.
Wheeling and dealing.
Yeah.
Come to the pawn shop. I got pieces for you.
Get to the pawn shop.
It's worked out so far. I'm a top 4 team at this point. So,
yeah.
I mean, it is what it is.
And you still have the Vic show. And the Vic show at any point can blow up or shit the bed. And I've told Robbie this earlier while we're sitting outside, him smoking a cigarette, me staring off in no man's land. But I told him, I said, you need a quarterback. At some point, you're going to have to need a consistent quarterback that, when Vic has an off week and then the waiver wire is kind of empty. So we'll kind of see what happens with Robbie the next few weeks with that quarterback situation. Hey, the pawn shop's open for another trade. He might be interested to throw something at him.
Bring it on.
So
Number 3. Number 3 is our friend from the north, Kevin. It's snowy up there, I think, right now. It's October.
And I really don't know what to think about Kevin. The only thing he has a man crush for Cam Newton. I'm not sure if he's, sending him letters or who knows what the hell he's doing with Cam Newton. But he relies on him, and I think it's going to bite him in the butt. I don't think Cam Newton is the person you need to rely on, Kevin. And I just don't. Other than that, you have some players that have showed some consistency, but I think that you're kind of a weak 3, but I'm not saying that you're anywhere toward the bottom of the league. But I think
Cam Newton may be his weak link, but he's got crutches, and his crutches are his receiving core.
No, I agree with that.
Victor Cruz, Anquan Bolden, and a third guy that puts up a lot of points. I don't remember who it is at this point, but he's still. I mean, his receiving core is carrying him at this point.
As long as Eli can get him the ball, so. And.
But yeah, I mean. That's all I got on that. But number 2, we'll go straight to Matt Brandenburg.
Reggie Bush averaging 20 points. Who in the hell would have thought Reggie Bush would have been averaging 20 points this far into the league? If I would have looked at this earlier in the league, which I did have Matt, and probably I think it was at 11th in the preseason rankings, and part of that reason why is because I said you drafted Reggie Bush. Well, Matt, you're absolutely brilliant. And at this point, because, like I said, 4 games in, Reggie Bush is averaging 20 points, and you still have Aaron Rodgers to back you up. So I don't, I do think you're consistent, at least top 4 team, but, we'll see what happens. So.
I mean, here's the thing with Matt. He scored huge in week 1, huge in week 2. He's kind of fallen off since then. I think you're going to see him leveling out at this point. He's definitely in the talks of the playoffs at this point in the game, but he has cooled down a little bit. Enjoy where you're at right now because your schedule only gets tougher as it goes on.
And of course, we have, which is the biggest fluke of them all, Strack at number 1. But instead of talking about his team, because we'll mention a few things in here, our match of the week is Carey versus Strack. And so, why did we pick that as the game of the week?
The game of the week is obviously their projections are very close. Carey's team on paper is underachieving, as we discussed, and she is going to dethrone Strack this week. Because
Strack has been overachieving, so we believe that the underachievers will beat the overachievers this week.
Right. I mean, Strack has Darren Sproles, who had a 25-point game last week, and he's got RG3, Garcon, Le'Veon Bell, all on bye this week. Carey's got Des Bryant, who's a badass, and we talked about the Sam Bradford move against the Jags. I mean, that's a veteran move. I think he's going to score 20 points. She's going to be all right this week.
Strack, your streak ends here. You start you start going down. Your players were believing that they were pretenders, or not believing they're pretenders. They were contenders. You are a pretender. Your whole team is a bunch of pretenders.
So, who are you taking this week?
Absolutely, Carey. I mean, there's no question. So
I think that Strack's crown as the undefeated guy is wearing heavy on his head, and this week goes to Carey. And beware, Strack, your schedule is getting way tough.
It's over, son. Scoop that.
All right, that is our Week 5 breakdown, and next week we have a special, exclusive one-on-one interview. I'm not going to tell you who it's with, but find out next week.
It's a must-see.
Good luck this weekend.
Take care.